Hey everyone, welcome back to Bible Q&A. In today's video, the question that I will be answering is, can thoughts count as sinful if no action is taken on them? So let me begin by answering the question. The answer is yes, thoughts are sinful on their own, and there are a few reasons why. Firstly, every single human being will act on their thoughts if there is sufficient opportunity and minimal risk. If you think of stealing, for example, if the situation arises where you're certain that you won't be caught, of course you're going to do it. Or as Jesus Christ said, ye have heard of how it was said in old time, ye shall not commit adultery. But I say unto you, that whosoever looketh on a woman lustfully has already committed adultery with her in his heart. Why? Because if this woman comes to you, dresses in a seductive manner, and opens herself to you, and there's nobody watching, you're going to fall for it. Why wouldn't you fall for it? For the spirits, God doesn't have to wait for you to do it first before he sees, okay, this person's an adulterer. This person's an idolater. This person's a thief, right? And he can punish you just for that alone. Right? You also see in 1 John chapter 3 verse 15 where John the Apostle said that whosoever hateth his brother is a murderer. You don't have to actually take a knife and stab them or take a gun and shoot them to be a murderer. When you have that mentality of wishing that the earth would just open so that they can fall inside, as far as God is concerned, you're a murderer. What God looks at is the way your heart is working. That was why when Samuel saw Jesse's first son and said, oh, the anointed of the Lord is before him, God told him, look not on his countenance, nor on the height of his stature, because I have refused him. For God seeth not as man seeth. Man looketh on the outward appearance, but the Lord looketh on the heart. So if God sees that you have very evil thoughts, even if you pretend to be nice to people and you don't really act on any of them, as far as God is concerned, you're very wicked. And God will punish you as if you did them. And this explains why God would sometimes punish people in rather severe ways, even when what they actually did was not that significant on the surface. For example, you remember in Genesis chapter 38 how God killed Onan just because he spilled his semen on the ground. You think, well, okay, what's so significant about that? Well, what was his intent? His intent was that he did not want to give seed to his brother who God had also killed for being evil. And God saw that wicked mind of his, and so he killed him. Another example is that of Michael, where we see that in 2 Samuel chapter 6 verses 16 to 20, after David had danced before the Lord with all his might as the ark of God was coming to Jerusalem, Michael felt bad. She despised him in her heart. And the reason why she despised him was because remember, she was Saul's daughter, obviously, and she believed in the kingdom that Saul had put together and had reigned and so on. So to see David just taking the place of that, there was a way she felt about that, a kind of envy of some sort. And so that was kind of the fuel for the way she was speaking to David. And notice that even though David had been married to Michal for a long time, in fact, if you read the account, you can calculate David would have been married to her for several years at that point. She had no child for David. And after Michal spoke to David in that bad manner, it said that she had no child to the day of her death. What am I trying to point out here? We can speculate that Michal's evil thoughts about David and about God's plan had caused her lack of having children up to that point and subsequently unto the day of her death. Just for having that bad mind. No children for her. So that comes to show that you don't have to physically do something massive to be considered evil before God. And at the same time, you can do so much evil literally with your hands, but you do it out of ignorance, and God can forgive you of all of it. You saw how Saul had killed and imprisoned many Christians before he was called to be an apostle, right? That was physically very evil. And in a sense, he meant what he was doing. However, as Paul later admitted in 1 Timothy chapter 1, verses 11 to 17, he did it ignorantly in unbelief. And God Almighty forgave him of all that. And on top of that, chose him to be an apostle to serve the Christian community at the time. I'm not saying that there are some sins that are quote unquote good. I'm not saying that. All sins are bad. Whatever sin I commit, God is going to punish me for it. However, you do not necessarily have to act on a thought for it to be a sin. And that was why King Solomon said the thought of foolishness is sin, according to Proverbs chapter 24, verse 9. And I'll round off with what was said in Isaiah chapter 55, verse 7, where it was stated, "Let the wicked forsake his way, and the unrighteous man his thoughts." Because if you don't forsake your thoughts that are bad, then if I do that or if you do that, we're going to be guilty of those things, which is why it's important that our thoughts be clean and pure before him. Okay, so that's where I'm going to stop with answering that question. Can thoughts be sinful or counted as sinful if no action is taken on them? And the answer to that question is yes. If you enjoyed this video, I would appreciate if you click the like button, subscribe to the channel, share this video with others who you know have asked this question before or might be interested in this topic. Click the notification bell if you haven't done so already, and be sure to check out the other videos we have on this channel, because we have so many interesting questions here, hundreds. And if you take the time to go through them, you'll just notice that your wisdom and your understanding will grow significantly, because we've done a lot of research here and looked into so many biblical stories and how they apply in our world today. Okay, so have fun with that, and I'd like to see you all in the next video.